for our next topic is going to be about housing, which is a pretty relevant topic for every single person, and the future of smart and intelligent building, what the ownership of properties can look like and it's gonna look like, and the financialization of housing. So think of it as like an experiment too that Una has been working on. She is a PhD at ETH Zurich and a council member for DAO Swiss and co-initiator of Zuitzerland, which is a Swiss society sandbox that I was very fortunate to be a part of earlier this year in Lax, which I recommend you guys check out again as well. So with that said, I'm gonna give it to you, and please let us know more about this really interesting experiment.
Thank you, Alta. I have to correct you first. It's ETH Zurich. I think I see my some fellows here. It's not Ethereum Zurich. It's a technical school in Switzerland. ETH Zurich.
Oh, sorry.
Like it sounds like Ethereum Zurich.
Okay, that's good to know. Let's call it ETH before.
No, no problem, no problem. Hello, everyone. I'm a PhD at ETH Zurich, and my main topic is about a self-owning house. So intersecting a blockchain, self-ownership, agency, cyber-physical systems, and intelligent buildings. And hopefully, you can get inspired from my experiments. Today, actually, I'm testing two things. One thing is like a new AI tool for this presentation called Gamma. So if there's errors, it's the AI's fault. And second, I'm testing a new narrative. I'm going to talk a little bit more of my project from an asset perspective instead of an engineering perspective. What is a self-owning house? First, I think I'm talking about the traditional housing perspective, which I think now, yeah, better, yeah, yeah. I think now it works. Do I need to? And overestimate at the same time. We have an emotional attachment. Is it working?
No.
Okay. We do have a. Oh, now better. Okay. We often underestimate and overestimate the housing market at the same time. We all have like a personal attachment to housing, like kind of for a lot of households that they will put their whole life savings into buying a house. That's kind of a dream. But at the same time, for the financial market, we kind of don't understand how like actually housing is one of the most interesting instruments. And it actually accumulates to over 600 trillion market size. And compared to gold, actually, does anyone know how big the whole gold market is globally? What's your estimation? Sebastian, you're thinking. Yeah, that's a really good estimation. Yeah, around 10 trillion is good. So 10 trillion actually is around how much gold there is. And we're talking so much about price of gold, but somehow when in terms of the market of housing and commercial residential housing, it's we kind of it's a really gap, and it counts for over 60% of global wealth there. And also, one thing I think housing is super important to talk about from an economic perspective is this triple effect. As I just mentioned, like we all kind of have an emotional attachment to housing. And why? Actually, it's because it's an inelastic demand. Like housing is also a fundamental human right, right? So everyone should be deserve a shelter. That's one of the fundamental rights to also, you know, one of the biggest topic is displacement of human, right? And at the same time, very interestingly, it's a huge profitable investment vehicle. So we all know the real estate moguls and how they make their money. And at the same time, deeper into the financial market, housing at the same time is also have a huge impact on credits. Maybe you will ask like how, it's not as straightforward as the first two, but for example, the whole urban sprawl, we all know that in a developed and nice urban dense area, the housing price is increasing, right? And actually the basic fundamental financial mechanism behind that made the house continuously more like expensive, it's because the credit expansion. And the credit expansion is just, put in simple terms, just like we're all willing to purchase with our future money, and then the credit starts expanding and we all borrow credit from banks because this is desirable plot, and then the housing get more and more expensive. So this is how basically housing is the backbone of any basically capitalist society. And this is, so I just quickly touch upon that, is that back to the thesis that housing interesting because it's personal and also deeply intertwined into the whole financial system. And how we see the shift of housing market. There are, for example, first I think only talking in recent terms, not like ancient terms, in historical terms. In Web 2, there's like a whole platform and network effects. You know, we all use Airbnb and still use Airbnb, and then the whole talk about sharing economy. One of the most famous quotes from this time would be like World Economic Forum quote that they discussed about you will own nothing and be happy. It's very controversial because like it sounded very sarcastic, I think, to common people, but like somehow it's like a futuristic talk from the Web talking about sharing economy, that you will have no ownership, like, or there's no ownership in the future. And then so this transformation in the end, kind of, I see it in 4 trends. One is like platform. So like this is the generation of like platform, centralized digital platforms, and housing start get asset light, meaning that we start to turn into share economy, the operationalize on digitizing it, but it start to not become because everyone recognize the illiquidity of housing, and we start talking about asset light and in this property tech innovations. And third, like sharing economy, we're getting more flexibility and we're talking more about sharing economy. How do we use, for example, underused assets? And lastly, there's a small trend, more niche on open source. I think some of the architect fellow here knows probably WikiHouse, for example, like along with digital fabrication, all this 3D printing, for example. There are people that imagining you see this 3D printing that could print a house, let's say in 10 days, and maybe you can assemble a house with a CNC machine within 2 days with 2 people. And those are kind of a movement within the housing market. And one of the leading example, for example, there is a WikiHouse. I really encourage you to check it out. And then, so we're talking about another shift now. Obviously, we're in a crypto conference. And then the shift further is now we see in Web3 and the decentralized network, and alongside with AI. We know that the whole real world asset and the tokenizing everything movement actually has been really successful, has been expanding, I think, with 40–50% of increase every year of tokenizing real world asset. And also, I would like to stress some of the more experimental trends, for example, radical market mechanisms. I don't know if anyone familiar with hamburger tax, for example, and partial common ownership tokens. I see why not. Very interestingly, this is like our radical, how do we radically change the housing market using crypto tool, right? I think similarly as my project, which is a self-owning house, when you think very radically, like you pull one string really extreme, I can help you to imagine how the future could look like. So this hamburger tax means like that radicalizing, kind of changing the housing market from a oh, it's only 2 minutes left. My God. It's a self-declaring tax. You have to check it yourself. I'm sorry. And then there's a collective ownership model, and obviously the whole network state and special economical zone movement, where I encourage you to check out project like Prospera, Zuitzerland, Network School, these are all super interesting experiments and how new togetherness or is coming about in Web3 and decentralized era. And then so next step is housing as a living machine. So Le Corbusier a long time ago said a house is a machine to live in. So in my research, this goes into the main topic of my research, I thinking about, for example, there's more trend of human building interaction. So our building are getting more intelligent, and we are becoming part of the sensor, as like Michael used to, the sensor only sensing the environment, but human actually is also part of sensor, and as we know, it's more becoming true because our data are getting collected, we like it or not, most likely in public spaces. And there's more advanced automation, and there's more participatory economy. I cannot go into that, so just quickly on my project. So this is a main project. You will find actually most of this content about my project inside the inside my publications. In the very beginning, along with Jens, we built it together. I thought about this like a radical experiment. What if like a house with its own wallet and can distribute its own money and live and die with the sun like us do? Like it also go to sleep when the sun is done. So it's a solar powered, self-owning, cyber-physical kind of house. And this is the construction periods and a lot of tinkering, engineering, and I will show you a kind of a video of the higher concepts. No one saw us since. Maybe I should like 10x it. Okay. I've no enough time. Yeah, it's part of the exhibition of ETH. And time is over, I see. Okay, I want to see how many slides I have. So actually here gonna talk more about the system. But if you're interested in cyber-physical system and the system perspective, contact me after the presentation. My time is up. So we're gonna go through this very quickly. So actually very similar to the first presentation as Michael's. Our research goal is like how do we go from control functions and logic to protocol and governance design? Like how do we bridge this? And we effectively, for example, in this, it's like borrowed from one of the Michael's, not borrow, like redevelop it further from one of Michael's graph that like how do you use blockchain effectively as a common knowledge or the source of truth to control this from a control logic to of a governance incentive layer. And then, yeah, this is a bit more imaginary in the end. I have to be really fast. How many minutes? Out, okay. Okay. Last minutes, this is the last slide. So like just like to invite everyone to rethink the future ahead. As Buckminster Fuller said, like we have been trying to optimize our efficiency, so we're trying to do more and more with less and less until eventually you can do everything with nothing. So what does that lead to? Like it's more true now than more than ever. It leads to, unfortunately, possibly the market collapse. So I put this a few imaginary, like do we have an intelligent overlord? Where does AI lead us to? And if the market collapse, for example, the pillars of 4 factors of production is going to be gone, like labor, what will we do next? And how does basically this intelligent system in the future, how do we build agency at the same time, also humanity in it? And how do we survive and thrive in this transformation? This is just an invitation to think together. And we can talk about it afterwards.